Yeah, thank you for the time that you guys have given us to come and speak to you. It's always good to connect in and actually see how much we can add to your businesses. That's why we're here. I would like to talk about IPM. I think most of what you're going to hear, you have most likely already heard at some stage during your business career. I just want to remind you of a few things that you might have forgotten along the way, and just highlight the importance of it. So I'm going to go through focus points. What is IPM? And then you'll see on that slide our IPM model. It's based on an article by Dara. It incorporates quite a lot of facets that we tend to forget about, and that can actually have a huge economical impact on how we run our businesses. I'm just going to focus on the small 4 little circles in the middle. First off would be the pest and disease management, knowledge and resources, planning and organization, and then communication. And you're welcome to follow through with those because it's a little bit small on the slide. So basically, to start off, what is IPM? What do you feel is IPM? What do you see as IPM? Anybody that would like to guess or take a... Nobody?
Integrated pest management.
What does that mean?
It means monitoring your pest pressures
Yeah.
on the different crops,
Yeah.
taking into account a reactive approach with regards to your spray regimes when they're necessary, and reacting and being proactive as opposed to just working off a calendar.
Awesome. Fantastic.
You clipped me before.
For that very impressive one, I'm going to give you something really special. Really special one.
Thank you.
I hope that's going to help you with your IPM.
Thank you.
Cool. So basically what IPM is taking every single thing that's in your control, all the information that you've got available to you, and building the best strategy to really make it as economical as possible to get the best yields possible. So we're talking economical, not necessarily like the best possible quality. We're talking economics of scale. So to start off, let's look at some of the facets around pests and disease management. So that little circle over there, we're going to run through each of these. And I'm going to focus on macadamias and see where these things hook into your business. And I want you guys to participate. Give me some ideas of what you've seen and make it really worthwhile sharing information. So we all know that macadamias in South Africa at the moment, the breeding of it, resistance building in the plant's genome is still in its infancy. The cultivars we currently have are only the 2nd generation. And I mean, it's not even close to where we can be. So there's quite a lot of work that can be done still on this to make sure that we've got cultivars soon that will actually be beneficial and do well in our different soil types. And basically, yeah, start off with your plant material. Where do you get your plant material? Is the nursery certified? Do they give you proper little plants? Do you guys go take a look at what your plants are looking like at the nurseries? Do you visit them? Because they are looking after your investment for the next 50 years. Has any of you ever gone to look at your nurseries, your trees? I mean, it's so important. Those are your investment for how many years? You need to get into that. We are working with some nurseries on making sure that the plants that do leave the nurseries are really the best quality. They're pre-inoculated with some of our bacteria and fungi to make sure once they reach the soil that they actually perform as quickly and as well as possible without getting infected with something that might already be in the soil. On a cultural side, there's quite a few things that you can do as a farmer to really bring out the best possible yields. We're looking at pruning. Pruning is very important for macadamias. This photo was taken down in the south, well, around here somewhere. These were, I think, 15-meter high trees. It was like this huge, thick, dark forest of this orchard that did not really start to like yield well that you would expect. And they started pruning, and the amount of yield increase they got by just doing that and making sure the light comes in really helped a lot. So pruning, very important. On SAMAC's website there is quite a lot of I think video clips that Skalk Skuman has made on pruning. If you've got time, go look at them, YouTube, and yeah, free information for macadamia growers. The next one I want to look at is orchard sanitation. If you've got diseases in your orchard, make sure that you remove infected material. We like to mulch, we like to put back organic matter, and Mark's going to talk about that in a bit. But if there's a problem, make sure you remove what can actually contribute in increasing the load. How many of you have got little natural environments where your predators and your diversity of different organisms, insects, can actually increase? Little hideaway sections of natural bush. You do? Ah, only 2. 3. Okay. So you all have something. Awesome. Yeah. So that's the areas that our natural predators can actually go hide away. That's where our pests sometimes overwinter, so it's a good idea to take a look at what's happening there. But these are very important sections, and I know you guys have heard Elsha also talking about it a lot, looking after what we already have in our environment. Irrigation scheduling can also play a huge role in your yields. Cover crops, a lot of interest at the moment regarding cover crops, making sure that the soil is not completely open, that there's always roots in the soil, even between your rows. And some of these crops can actually add a lot of benefit. Some of them are resistant to Phytophthora, so you can drop the load of Phytophthora in your soils, especially in the inter-row. You get less problems going on later. Some of them can act as an alternative host for thrips, which Colleen might mention a bit later. So there's quite a lot of benefits in looking at cover crops. There's a lot of research at the moment going on in cover crops as well. The next one is fertilizers, using specific fertilizers for certain functions. Looking at something like silica, for instance. This is a trial that I did with Elsha up in Levubu, where we treated one orchard compared to another with silica to look at what the impact is on husk infestation with macadamia nut borer and FCM. Comparing the two, and this is just some of the results. So on your left, there's the control. They did not receive any silica, so it got the normal fertilizer regime. The only difference was they added some silica and a double dose, and there's a significant difference in nut borer damage in between those 2 orchards. So looking at specific fertilizers to also help building more stronger plants, healthier plants, more resilient plants, plants that are more stress resistant, can also benefit. And the nitrogen, overuse of nitrogen can lead to plants that are very growing vegetatively and might actually be more detrimental. So lower nitrogens more often rather than a huge dose at once. And then also your composting residues to help build the diversity of your soils. The more types of food you give the soil, the microbes, the diverse the population you're going to get in there. And then intercropping for especially young trees, planting something in the interim to make it more economical, something that you can already, harvest in the interim while you wait for your crop to reach maturity and start delivering nuts. So quite a few options that's available. So this is the one that I like the most. It's biological, and the other one is microbes. So there's a lot of microbial or macrobials, as we call them, insects and arachnids and your natural environmental little hohos that can actually contribute a lot into lowering the pressure in your orchards. Here we've got some, I think, lacewing eggs, some parasitoids, and also your pathogenic nematodes that eat your bad nematodes. So there's a lot of diverse organisms that can contribute, and the better you look after these guys, the more stable your environment will be and the less pressure there will be from your pests. They will start to help really keeping them in check. There's a lot of behavioral things. Under this, we group your pheromones, your mating disruption products like your false codling moth, your last call, to keep them, the moths from mating, confuse them. So if it does happen, it's going to be a lot lower. Your pressure is going to be a lot lower. Baits and attractants, products that they developed specifically to attract your pests out of the crop, to bait them, to get them out. Traps, those are used mostly to help us to know what's happening inside the orchards, to scout. And then also repellents. I don't know if you've heard, I think it was in one of your articles, about what do you call it, a repellent that they're developing that's similar to the two-spotted stink bugs smell, that might actually chase away other stink bugs from your orchard. So it's a lot of weird new technologies that are actually coming out soon. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. Then on the other side, we also have physical and mechanical methods that we can incorporate. So orchard sanitation again, some of the nets, I know Elsha has spoken about this, it's chemical impregnated nets they put around the base of the tree so you don't have to spray the tree, and as your pests walk up, especially your stink bugs, they pick up some of the residues and then they die instead of them going up and causing harm, and you have to go and spray them. Also, a lot of them lay eggs on these nets, and those eggs will never hatch. So it's a natural way, or less harmful way, to control them.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question about the nets?
Yes.
You say you put it on the base of the tree?
Around the trunk of the tree.
Around the trunk of the tree?
Yeah, so there's a...
But a stink bug is not going to fly there, it's going to fly straight into the tree.
Yes, but normally the females climb up the side of the tree to lay eggs,
Okay.
and as soon as they move across that.
Yeah. All right.
No, it's amazing what's happening out there.
All right.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
Speak to Elsha about it. It's quite interesting to see. But it's like still a way off, but it's stuff that they're currently looking into.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Then also fogging, using water vapor to form like a blanket over your orchard to help against or buffer a bit. You guys don't really have the cold that we've got up north as much, to help with cold stress and to just buffer that really cold spell in the orchards. And then microbial, which is my favorite. So that's bacteria and fungi that causes disease in your pests. This is a trial also that Elsha did quite a while ago. We're looking at the reduction in false codling moth and macadamia nut borer using EcoBB and Cryptex compared to the control. So that line is anything that's better than the control. This was the chemical standard that we used. That's a metarhizium from a competitor product. This is a competitor virus product, and our combination EcoBB with Cryptex. But look at what your macrobials are doing. This trichogramma actually really had an impact on what the moth damage that they caused. So these guys are all there for you to use and to incorporate into your program. This is EcoBB. If you guys want to know what it looks like, the product on the table over there. Afterwards, if you've got some time, take a look. On the left, we've got some stink bug damage, percentage of the unsound husk compared to no treatment, stink bug damage of your total kernel recovery, a significant impact there, and statistically also your stink bug damage, dry nut in shell. So using biologicals can contribute. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it is definitely something that can help to make a less intense, harsh impact on the environment. Next one is fungicidal and bactericidal microorganisms. So these are microbes that can attack diseases that you've got. So we're looking at dry flour, seeing if there's a bacteria that we can use to maybe limit the damage that it causes. And you can actually sit with more nuts on your raceme. I know you guys you're busy testing it at the moment, playing around with it. Yeah. And then also you soon going to have some bactericidal or bacterial and fungal herbicides, which are highly specific to certain pest, what do you call it? Weeds. Specific weeds. So things that's starting to grow resistance against some of your chemicals, highly specific, targeted herbicides, which I think can actually add a lot of value to our industry. Then on the chemical side, so this is not my strong suit. You guys know more about this than I do. Synthetic pesticides, fungicides, bactericides and herbicides. What I would like to mention is your botanical extracts, so your azadirachtin and pyrethrins. They also fall under chemical products because it's an extract of a molecule that you're going to be applying. Same with your microbial derived metabolites. So spinosad comes from a bacteria. It's been extracted from a bacterium. Same with ivermectin. And then something that's also coming into play is RNA interference technology. So what we've got there is a little piece of RNA that they apply to a crop, and that RNA changes the way the insect's life cycle works. So it switches some genes on and it switches some genes off, and it interferes with that little insect's life cycle. It's amazing what's coming soon. So that's the first part of it about pest and disease management. Next one is knowledge and resources. So this is all in your hands. This is something that you guys can all have access to. Important to make sure that you identify your pests and diseases correctly. Make sure that you understand the biology of it. Where's the soft spots in that specific pest's life cycle? Where is its easy target? What is the population trends throughout the season? And then look at, for instance, the soft spots, like a soil stage that your entomopathogenic fungi can actually attack, and also like your female laying eggs at night. So both macadamia nut borer and FCM, the females only lay eggs at night. So if you go in with a contact insecticide at night, the chances of you hitting her is quite high, rather than spraying during the day. So know the insect, know when it's most vulnerable. And then also looking at alternative host, inoculum for a new season's disease development. And those are options that's available to you. If you're aware of it and you keep it in mind, it can actually add up and save you some money. And then also practices that we follow that might actually influence the life cycle of the pest. So to bring this into an example, I'm going to look at FCM. Thrips I'm leaving to Colleen to talk about. Soil health I'm leaving to Mark. So I'm going to use FCM as an example. So FCM has got a life cycle where it's got 5 larval stages. It pupates and the moth, and then you get the eggs laying again. So what we do at the moment, we scout for them. We've got those traps with a pheromone in. We scout for the males. Once the males increase to a certain amount of moths per trap, we know there's an issue. There's a new peak that formed and we need to act. So which are the most susceptible soft spots for this pest? So for me it's this section over here, the eggs which are laid on the fruit surface, and also the first instar, very small little one. Other one is your adult moth, which only moves at night, and the pupae, which resides in the soil. So those for me are 3 possible places where you can hit it the hardest. Just to make it a bit clearer, this... Yeah, please. Yeah.
As far as the larvae is concerned, term. You said resides in the soil. Is it not like
The pupae.
the pupae?
Yeah, the pupae is in the soil. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not the larvae.
Not the larvae. Did I say larvae?
Yeah.
No.
Sorry. Yeah, it's the pupae that's in the soil. Yeah. So sorry about that. Yeah. That's definitely the pupae. So what you see here is egg hatching, FCM egg hatching. I don't know if you can see there's a little window on the egg surface. This larvae actually pushes itself out of its egg. So you guys know bollworm quite well. It eats itself out of its shell. This guy has got a little hatch and it pushes itself out of this little egg. So if you've sprayed an ingestible insecticide, that guy's not going to eat it. It's not going to get it in by just hatching. Whereas bollworm, on the other hand, it eats itself out of that little shell. So if you've sprayed something over it, a BT for instance, it will ingest it. This guy won't. So there's a problem. We need to overcome this. FCM also, once it's hatched, it walks across the surface of your fruit before it starts to burrow into your surface of your nut. Okay, so at least it doesn't bore like your tomato or tuta absoluta directly into the leaf surface. It does move across. Here's the egg that was laid, and that's the little hole that it made. So it moves across the surface, and it actually has hairs on its surface. And if you've applied something that it needs to ingest, it might pick that up as it's moving across the surface. So if it needs to ingest that active ingredient, it's not going to die. Contact maybe, but something that needs to ingest it won't. But this is where it gets interesting. So this is what it does. You see those little hairs on its body. So if there was a BT toxin, for instance, or a virus particle, as it was moving across the surface here, it would have picked that up. And if it's now burrowing into the fruit surface or the nut surface, you'll see it doesn't ingest it. It digs and then it spits it out. And it digs and it spits it out. But what it does, it keeps moving in and out of this little hole that it's making. So if it's gotten these virus particles or BT toxins on its surface, as it's moved in and out, that would be smeared on the inside of that little hole. And as soon as it turns around, seals off that little hole and starts to feed, that's when it will actually get that active ingredient in. So for a virus product, for instance, you're going to always see a little mark of where it made a little hole because it doesn't ingest it. But you will never see it develop further. It's literally just going to make that little hole, and as soon as it's turned around and it started to eat, that virus particle will get in and it will kill that little first instar larvae. Does that make sense? Cool. So knowing your pest is really, really critical. I mean, it's got these amazing opportunities for us to use and utilize.
Sorry, does this work the same with nut borer?
As far as I know, yes. The virus is highly specific though. So this specific one is Cryptex, it's specific to
You
FCM.
don't have something for nut borer.
There is something happening,
There isn't anything.
not at the moment. But your BT will have an impact. So all your Bacillus thuringiensis, especially the Kirstaki ones, they have cryproteins that's active against your nut borer and FCM and lupus, and they're registered specifically for FCM, but it will have an impact on nut borer. So there are options available. The entomopathic fungi also, they do need to sometimes be ingested for it to work. So if it ingests some of those fungal spores, it will also get disease and die. Might just take a little bit longer. Okay. So that's the pest. So now we know the pest, we know what the diseases are, exactly the same for diseases. So if we know and understand it, we can do something about it. So let's look at the crop. What is the biology of the crop? When is it most susceptible? And what are the phenological stages? Where's the soft spots? So yeah, when is thrips the biggest issue in your crops, in your macadamia field? Exactly. Exactly. And especially if you live next to somebody that's got maybe an orange tree, like really causing big harm. So knowing these guys are starting to increase in population size, Colleen is going to focus on that a bit later to help us understand their biology. So she's going to help us understand this a bit better. So your phenological side chart on your macadamia. So I copied this from SAMAC's website. Thank you to them. To give you an idea for FCM specifically, so we're taking the FCM example again. Most susceptible time is basically from your early nut set, which starts here in September, October, the first nut drop in November, and then basically all the way through until your nuts matured enough for those guys to not be able to infest. So that's quite a long period of time that you need to take a look at that. So what are the available control options? You've got your contact products, you've got systemic products that can affect burrowing insects, you've got translaminar products that work for sucking bugs, and you've got mating disruption. So there's quite a few options available. Registered, you've got that whole list on SAMAC's website of what products are available to you, and you can make them fit to what suits you the best. And then the last thing for me is intercropping, and that's something that you guys can maybe start looking into a bit more, is to attract the pests away from your crop. So plant a section of something that really is valuable to that pest and it doesn't affect or cause economical harm or levels of harm in your crop. Back to FCM, so you've got your cultural control, mating disruption, biological control, and your conventional. So on your biological side, specifically against FCM, you've got your entomopathogenic nematodes, which aren't registered yet, but there's a lot of research being done on it. Entomopathogenic fungi. I don't know, do you want to say something about that? Prabhashni. I'm sorry, Prabhashni. Now, there's a lot of research being done. These guys are coming soon. I'm super excited about it. It's really going to tackle the soil stage of our pests, and they're highly specific. Here we've got EcoBB, for instance, which is registered on macadamias against FCM. It does have an impact on MNB as well. So that is what it looks like. So that's an FCM larva. I don't know if you can see those 3 little breathing holes. So as it's infecting the insect, it starts to grow throughout the whole body of that insect, and it will grow out of the sides. And those are little balls of spores that are then available to infect other pests. That's what it looks like on pupae. So when your FCM is in the soil and it's made contact with the specific fungus, it will actually kill that pupae and it won't grow into a moth. That will bring down your population levels. Then the viruses, like I said just now, this is what the virus does to FCM larvae. So this is in a petri dish. They've been fed viruses, and this is what you won't necessarily see because it happens and that insect becomes mush. Oops. So imagine this happening inside that nut if it's had a single virus particle ingested. And that goo is available to make or to infect the next pupa or the next larva. So it ingests it, that virus multiplies and multiplies inside it, becomes this sack of virus particles, and then you sit with this goo. This is also how we produce the viruses. So the virus particles are produced inside an insect. So what you're getting in your virus products is really what you will find in nature. Nicely formulated, UV protected products. Next, so encourage your natural biodiversity, because the more diverse your soils, the more diverse your orchards, the more natural suppression you're going to find in your orchards. Moving over to tools and technology. So for me, very important, decisions must be made based on all the available information that you've got, all your control options that you've got. important from our side, the registration for a product needs to be for a specific crop, for a specific pest or disease. So that actually, it is a challenge for us in South Africa, specifically with our registration process. But once you get that registration, if it's on the label, we had to jump through all the loops that the chemical guys had to get that product to market for you. Macrobials for a large hectare crop, sometimes challenging. There are some significant improvements, and they are starting to show benefits. And then a lot of your IPM tools that are being played with, that are being investigated, don't reach its implementation because it's not always practical. The costs thereof, or the lack of interest from the industry. Second last is our planning and organisation around monitoring. Yes?
I just want to ask quickly, looking at the parasitoids, are you guys thinking of going down that line as well? Like a little wasp?
So there's currently 6 companies. Yeah, there's currently 6 companies in South Africa that is already producing, and a lot of them do bring external or non-South African insects in. South African local biodiversity is just so incredible. So I think rather pushing those guys that already have the technology to look for local would be a better option. Yeah, we're experts at what we do. They're experts at what they do. Early detection, very important. Scouting is critical for you to make a success out of your business. Early detection means you can do something quite soon. Spot treatments of infestation level, so that's a FCM Delta trap scouting card. Thank you. Going through your orchards, looking at the fruit, nuts, looking and seeing what's actually happening, looking at your stink bug damage thresholds, knowing what's happening, knowing what's going on. And then you can react a lot faster and make quicker reactions. Again, Colleen's going to be talking about thrips, and what information she's going to give you might change the way you look at thrips as a threat. Around the danger of using a program approach, based on a calendar, you might actually miss an opportunity to have made a huge impact on your pest population. Go according to scouting. Make sure you've got the information, you make a good decision. Your calendar-based programs can cause indiscriminate damage, and also some of them are quite inaccurate. Then we also now have drone and satellite aerial imagery, especially when it comes to your health of your plant. Mark's going to talk about that in a bit. Know what your trees are up to, how they're doing, which ones are actually attracting pests rather than being resistant against them. So this is basically just on FCM. Scouting is critical. You've got your pheromone traps. You know what your threshold levels are. If you've got your historical orchard data, you can actually quickly address it, and then look for alternate hosts that might be harboring them, and try to target that. Managing the information you've got around record keeping. Know what pests you've got, damage they've caused over the past few years, the effectiveness of your treatment. How many of you go back after you've applied and check to see if it was actually working? Is it something you do often?
Normally do that with the scouting, so you'll come back
and check.
The next week
Okay.
and check again, and you'll see your spot
Okay.
come down, so you can see a difference.
Cool. So if you scout, you'll know.
Scouting is key.
It is absolutely critical. And then you get seasonal fluctuations. This season is going to be different from last year's season, and your irrigation practices can also play a role, as will your plant nutrition. So sound decisions based on your preventative and curative actions are key to make it as economical as possible. Around corrective actions, so IPM success is built on taking timely actions again to prevent damage and also to prevent the spread of a pest to your neighbour, which is also very important. And this is where communication comes in. So staying informed about what's happening in the industry, know new pests, felted cockade for instance, that's come into the country, know what it is, know what it looks like, keeping an eye out for it, make sure that you're informed, and be prepared to address the problem if you can. And then within the group, in your farm, specifically on your farm, make sure your farm workers are trained well and your teams know what they're doing. Make sure that they communicate between each other and talk about what works one side, doesn't work on the other side. Pesticide handling and safety. So if you do training, Global Gap's not really hit you guys yet. It's coming. And the records you keep are going to be so valuable in your Global Gap audit. Yes, you can use this. This will tick so many boxes and make life a lot easier for you. So just making sure you've got training schedules, and that's going to address that for you already, quite a few of it. Then communication amongst growers. So days like this, days when SAMAC comes to your study group, very important. Make sure that you make the most out of these opportunities. Yes, there are proprietary information between farms. You want to keep your competitive edge, but there's something in sharing knowledge amongst each other. What worked for you might help somebody else out of a very big problem. And remember that pests and diseases, they're not bound by borders. And I don't know if you guys were at Elsha's Roadshow 2017. This was taken a little bit further down the road on one of those farms. So sharing information, talking about things. And then the public. So the public is the guys that buy our crop. A lot of the issues we're sitting with, chemicals coming off our lists, are because of the pressure they put on us. And I think we can do more in influencing them and training them and telling them the situations we're sitting in, and actually educating them on the difficulties. So they also understand that getting a perfect tasteful nut, what it really costs a farmer to get that to them. So they actually understand what it is that they're buying. And so they understand why they're paying that specific premium for it. And then it's also our responsibility to influence the policymakers to make sure they understand what we need to actually grow well. And that is basically my story. You're welcome to ask any questions. If there's anything I can help you with, that's what I'm here for. Thank you very much. Anything? Yes?
Your agri-soil, you said it controlled nut borer.
It limited the damage.
Was that without any chemical spray?
Nothing. Nothing so compared to a control.
The control had no chemical and used the agri-soil.
You know Elsha Hubert? You can speak to her about it. It was done in a farm, Vastaan Boerdery, that we did that. It was a 2-year trial, so it wasn't just a single year that we did it. And over the 2 years, we've got a significant drop. Anything else? Cool. Thank you so much.